All right. Hello, everybody. We are queuing up our live conversation with Carolyn Heacock, who is the designer of the most recent Rigid Heddle Skill Builder box. So I'm just going to give it a minute so that we can get Carolyn and Christine on here live with us, and then we will dive right in. So just a minute while we get everyone set up. All right, I'll get Christine in here. If you're watching the recording, hello, thank you for joining us. Hello, Christine.
Hi, Anna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
It's a beautiful sunny day here. The leaves are coming off the trees. I can't complain.
Yes, they are. Actually,
Yes.
kill
All
my
right,
overhead lights so it doesn't look like I'm an alien.
All right, and I see Carolyn, so I'm going to get her in here. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I am going to get started. And if you are joining us by watching the recording, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to our Facebook Live for the Rigid Heddle Skill Builder subscription box. I'm Anna. I'm just customer service and marketing coordinator. And joining me today and stewarding the conversation, we have Christine Jablonski, who is our Director of Content and Customer Experience here. And we have the guest of honor, the designer of the Log Cabin Exploration Box, which is currently available. I think there are still a few spots left for this current box, but they're going quick, so you can still sign up. Carolyn Heacock. And we love having this Facebook group. It's really fun to see photos of everyone weaving the project. So keep posting your pictures. Thank you, everyone, for asking questions and answering questions. It's really fun to see all of that engagement in the Facebook group. So keep posting. We absolutely love it. Just a little bit of housekeeping stuff before we jump in. This is going to be a conversation that mostly revolves around general weaving concepts, inspirations behind the box, things of that nature. If you have really technical weaving questions that you would like to ask us or Carolyn, please email us at hello@gistyarn.com. If you want to submit a question, you can do so in the comments here, and I will monitor them and I can bring them to Christine and Carolyn for discussion. But if it's a very technical pattern question, please direct that to email so that we can give it proper attention and make sure that we're getting back to you with accurate information. And what else do we have? I'll share a little bit about Carolyn before we get started. So when Carolyn Heacock was in elementary school, she wove a small basket in art class. That project planted the weaving seed in her, which wasn't watered until January of 2020 when she took her first weaving class. And she's never looked back since. Since then, she has acquired a rigid heddle loom, 2 floor looms, and a small tapestry loom made by her husband, or perhaps looms. That's very cool. She loves to weave utilitarian items, including hand towels, placemats, table runners, rugs, scarves, bookmarks, and coasters. And in addition to weaving, she enjoys quilting, hiking, bike riding, and spending time with her family. And of course, many of you might know Christine Jablonski, who has joined us in these conversations before. As GIST's Director of Content and Customer Experience, Christine is responsible for nurturing relationships with our designers, like the lovely Carolyn, and finding new designers to bring into the fold and bring engaging content and patterns that are fun to weave and fun to learn. So in addition to Christine's responsibilities at GIST, she also is an exhibiting artist whose work has been shown in New England galleries and is held in private collections across the country. And she is a contributor to Little Looms and Handwoven magazines and is the author of Soul Space Notes, which is a Substack column on weaving art and life. So now I'm going to turn things over to Christine. And again, if anyone joins in and wants to submit a comment into a question into the comments, I'll be monitoring those and I'll bring those into the conversation. But for now, I'll turn things over.
Thank you, Anna. And actually, in terms of housekeeping, one thing we did yesterday upload a just an update to the Adobe towels, which was project number 2. There was a little typo in that this is all on me. Forgot to mirror a repeat on towel 1. I'm sure woven, it's still gorgeous, but we just made that slight correction. So look for version 2 in your downloads. Sorry about that. Anyway, moving on. Carolyn, thank you for joining us today. It is always lovely to see you. You came to GIST, you found us, I think, in 2023, and through an open call. And I remember going through the folder that you submitted. It was a really robust portfolio of like pillows, towels, bookmarks, bath mats, and then across a variety of different weaving techniques. It wasn't just plain weave or color and weave, or there was some rep weave in there. There were a whole bunch of things. And at the time, I, was looking at your bio. You had not been weaving all that long. I think you just started in 2020. Oh, and then guess what happened in 2020? So I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about those early weaving days for you. You really got bit by the weaving bug.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you were just like completely intrepid and all in, on weaving. Were you willing to try anything and everything? Did you have, a mentor or a really trusted weaving teacher that kind of sort of shepherd you through the process?
Yeah. So I took my first rigid heddle weaving class, which was my first weaving class, the end of January 2020. And I had no idea that the pandemic was going to be like it was. I was teaching international students at my local university. So I knew that something was going to happen, at least in our department, because we had students from Wuhan, China, and we had to quarantine them. But I didn't realize it would impact our whole country. And after a week of taking that class, I took it at Yarn Barn in Lawrence, Kansas, and they were like, if you buy a loom from us, you get like 20% off or something. And I was like, to my husband, I have to buy this rigid heddle loom. I fell in love, and I've always wanted to weave. And he's like, go for it. So I bought a rigid heddle loom. And then I bought a pattern. I had no idea how to read a pattern, but little by little I figured it out, and I wove some towels. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And so I wove a bunch of towels, and then I was like, I want to weave a rug. And so I bought a pattern for a rug. And so figured that out and wove that. And then I just started, lots of towels, lots of rugs, but started playing a lot. I didn't really have a mentor. I was just looking around for things I wanted to do. The woman who taught me to weave got her degree in fiber arts at the local university, and she weaves a lot of tapestries. And she had shown me how to do like inlay. But I was like, okay, I got to kind of figure this out. And so I just started playing. So I would warp a loom and just play with stuff. And then I would look around on the internet and go, what else are people doing? And just start playing. But I just kind of figured it out as I went, but also played a lot. And that let me see, this is what I like. This is what's hard. This is what I can't learn on my own. This is what I want to learn on my own. And then it wasn't but like 6 months, but my teacher contacted me and said, hey, I see that you're weaving a lot. You've embraced this probably more than any of my students. I'm getting a new 4-shaft loom. Would you like my other one? Somebody gave it to me, and I'd love to pass it on to you. So I got a 4-shaft loom for free. I know. And then she brought it over warped for me. And
Wow.
she's like, I know. And so, and it was a long warp, and it came with the cardboard that you roll around it and everything. She said, I just want you to start playing. I don't want you to have to figure out how to warp it. And then you can take a class on how to warp a loom later. So that's exactly what I did. I just played on that. She showed me a little bit about how to read drafts, how to do twills, but not a ton. And then I took the class on how to warp my own loom, and just started little by little figuring it out. But a lot of times I will like just look around on the internet, especially a lot at the beginning, but sometimes still now, I'll look around the internet and go, I love that. I want to figure that out. And then I like, can this be done on a rigid heddle loom? How do I do this? Used YouTube a lot. I took some online class. I think my first online class was from Angela Tong, and took some from Deborah Jarchow and some from Liz Gibson. And so did those online, but I'm not part of a group in my community. And so it was nice to have those online resources, and just started figuring out, what can I do? What's difficult? I think I was more curious in the beginning because life has gotten busy. I have that just moved to town. And so now I'm doing grandma a lot. But it was just fun to play. And one of the things that I saw early on was the log cabin pattern. And I'm like, I love that. How do you do that? I probably can't do that on my loom. And then I heard it's plain weave. You can do it on a rigid Heddle loom. So then I looked up videos on how to do it and started playing just with basic plain weave. And so I did a basic plain weave, some towels. And then I was like, what if I threw a third color in here for the borders between the blocks, and started playing with that? What might that look like? And then started realizing, man, you can do a lot of things with log cabin besides just vertical, horizontal, vertical, horizontal. So that's kind of what gave me the idea to play even more with plain weave. And then, gosh, I could write patterns with plain weave. And so that's kind of where this box ended up. Because it's, oh, go ahead.
And then you took it even a step further into, instead of using, well, in addition to using just color changes to achieve pattern, you then also used density changes, like in the Adobe towels, which was, which was a fun twist. And we'd seen that before with Carly Jane's Magic Runner. Magic Dance Runner. Yeah, Magic Dance Runner, I think it was called. And in Duet, but the way you had approached it with Mallow actually was, a different cloth entirely. And just really, it was fun to work on, I will say, and really fun to photograph.
And they made thick absorbent towels, and changed the set for both yarns, and I only did it for one of them. So that changed a little bit how it looked, but also I really loved it as a towel. And then it was like, okay, this is really Southwest. I just chose those colors. But I told you I had also done it later I did it in lichen and natural. Is that what you call the? And I'm from Kansas, so it just looked like Kansas farm fields, and I love it. Colors too. So it's just a fun pattern to weave up. It's not real complicated, but I think it packs a powerful punch.
No, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. What is so if, like, the variety of techniques that you have used, what's your favorite currently? And what's your favorite piece that you've ever woven?
Okay. My newest technique, which I feel like I'm pretty late to the party on this, was waffle weave on a rigid Heddle loom. So I was like, oh, I can do washcloths. And so, that and thicker towels and stuff. So sometimes I played with waffle weave with vertical and horizontal stripes. I don't like it as much. I like it's maybe horizontal stripes with the weft is all one solid color. But then playing with floats too, because I hadn't done floats. I feel like a lot of people do that earlier than I did. But that's just fun because it's different. Anytime I'm working on something that's different, it's fun. So I had showed you one piece, and I'll show you that as something that I love. But then I saw another one downstairs. And I was like, I have to bring this one up. So last spring, I took a weaving class at the University of Kansas, and I'm retired. And if you are over 60, you can take free classes at the university. The state pays for them, I guess. And so I was like, okay, I'm retired now. Let me just go hang out in the art department, because I had taught English as a second language for my career. And so art was very different. And I was like, hey, I've got some experts here. And so this last class I took, it was on a multi-chef loom, and the people in the class were new. And so the teacher's like, you kind of know what you're doing. You can just play around with different stuff. But if you want to do the projects we're working on, you can do them. And I had a goal of 8-chef loom, and I had a goal of learning double weave, and I had a goal of painting warps. And we had a painted warp project. In fact, this one right here is one of the, sorry. I don't need my computer. I can just hold up my phone. So I painted a long warp, and then made 2 wall hangings.
Beautiful.
And so I was like, okay, it's an art piece. And before this class, I hadn't really done art pieces. I just had done very functional pieces. So, and you can see in my bio, I don't say I do art things, but last spring I was like, you have to try to do stuff like this. So I did these, then I entered the other one in an art show and it sold at the gallery. So I was like, oh, hey, that's exciting. Maybe there's a future in that. Not always just functional. And then after I painted that warp for my last project, I wanted to do a double weave, which I'd never done before. I wanted to use 8 shaft, which I'd never done before. And I wanted to continue to paint the yarn. So I did this.
Ooh.
And so
Wow.
it's all mercerized cotton. And the black, I bought black, but all the other yarns I dyed with synthetic dyes.
Wow.
So I have a friend who lives in Argentina and we meet online a lot just so she can practice her English. She's a quilter, but she knows a lot of art and she dyes all of her own fabric. So she taught me how to get gradients with synthetic dyes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go get this cotton and I'm going to just have, a few cups, but end up with a lot of colors. And so that's what I did for this. And then that's the front of it. But on double weave, there's always a front and a back. And this is the back of it.
Nice.
So,
Beautiful.
so that was fun. I'd love to learn more about double weave because I just did that one warp. And just play around. I haven't done double weave on a rigid Heddle loom either. And I was like, that'd be something worth exploring.
We can help you with that.
Yeah. No patterns on that, but I've never done it. And then I just want to show you one more warp. And I showed this to you, Christine, and maybe Anna the other day. So this is one that I painted and I wove 4 shafts. And it's just got
it's lovely.
Yeah. So that's another wall hanging. So those are some things I've done since last April.
So
go ahead.
So you are as Felicia Lowe at Sweet Georgia Yarn says, you are a multi-craft maker. So we can see how the dyeing, the painted warps influence your weaving. You're a quilter also. Does that influence your thought process or your projects, your weaving projects, or are there other things that you're doing and other crafts you're doing and exploring that sort of cross-pollinate your weaving process?
So with quilting, when I first started quilting, I mean, recently, like 2015, I picked it up again. I had done quilting ages ago and it was always, like quilt blocks. That was the thing. In 2015, I picked it up again, just looking around, what do I like, figure out how to make it. Didn't buy patterns, just kind of figured it out on my own. But a lot of blocks, but even if not blocks, always geometric shapes because I'm wired that way. In fact, you can see some of these things that I did.
The Joseph Albers Square
size class that I took on Indigo, but this is very, me. Not really me because it's Joseph Albert, but it appealed to me because it's very. And so then when I started doing weaving, I was like, okay, this is geometric. I can get into this. And the direction of quilting is very improvisational right now. So the quilts are getting accepted into quilt shows and that are getting purchased by museums or galleries. They're not typically quilt blocks. They're very improvisational. And so I wanted to try tapestry. So I tried it and I was trying to do like some transparency effects with different shades of yarn, but like drawing shapes like this. And I just couldn't do it. I don't like, or like some people will do tapestries and they're gorgeous, but they look like a painting. I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to draw. I was like, just give me geometric shapes. So I think that with my quilting and with weaving, those kind of go hand in hand. Maybe someday I'll learn and I can push the boundaries. But right now, I think both of that, I think very in grid patterns. And so weaving really helps that. And then I told you that I meet with an Argentinian woman. I also meet with a Chilean woman, and help her with her English because she teaches quilting classes all over the world. I should say her English is incredible right now. When we started, she didn't feel comfortable speaking in it, but they both know a lot about art. And I haven't taken real art classes. I took a natural dyes class a year ago at KU, which was awesome. I learned so much about natural dyes. Then I took the weaving class, taken a bookmaking class this semester, which is a little bit different, but never taken any basic art classes. And so when I help my friend from Chile with her workshops, she lays out the PowerPoint and we go through every one and we talk about the English and we talk about the pronunciation, but I also learn about art. And so it teaches me a lot of art principles, a lot of color theory. And I know color theory works a little bit differently with weaving than it does with quilting, but still learning, I didn't know anything about it at all. And so I've learned a lot about it. And so even this GAMP that I made, it was like, okay, I want to make a GAMP and I'm going to use this dyeing method that I learned from this quilter and I'm going to see how those colors interact. And, I can see it on a quilt, but to see how it does it with yarn. So I'm picking up a lot of art theory from them, which I really like. So those are some ways. And the natural dyes and synthetic dyes, those cross-pollinate because you can weave without ever dyeing your own fiber. And I started with dyeing cloth. I was just interested one day, and I live around a ton of acorns and a ton of pine cones and a ton of walnuts. And so I started collecting those and then dyeing fabric and doing stuff with that. And then once I started weaving, it's like, oh my gosh, I could dye yarn and start playing with it that way. So those are some of the ways that I've cross-pollinated.
You have a lot. I bet your hands are never idle.
No, they're not. And I just reorganized this room that I'm in because it was a classroom for so long during the pandemic. And now it's like, oh my gosh, it's like there's fabric here and there's yarn here and there's natural dyes here. And then there's yarn in another room. And then there's a big loom here and there's a loom downstairs. It's like, oh my gosh, my sewing machine is in my dining room. It's like everything. But
Yes.
so then when I come in here, it's like, I could do one of 1,000 things. Which thing am I going to do today? So I organize. Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's see. You mentioned you were taking a bookmaking class at KU. Are there what else? What else are you taking there? Or do you think would you venture into like stumble into the art history department and maybe take some classes there?
Maybe I took 2 art history classes in undergraduate. I never took any producing art classes, but 2 art history classes. I might do that, but it's interesting because it's nice if there's not a lot of homework.
Yeah.
And I think the art history classes have a ton of homework. And so I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to go that route right now. I'm thinking next semester, all the weaving classes are full, which surprised me. They have a limited number of looms. And so I'm thinking about contacting the main weaving professor and asking her if I can just do a 1-hour like tutorial kind of thing. And then pick a topic and delve deep into it, like double weave maybe. Just get feedback from her but kind of self-learn and explore things that way. But just so I have access to someone who knows more than I do. So that's a thought. There's also a quilting class, and I know I've quilted a lot, but it's like when you're working with somebody who's been a quilting professor for 40 years, there's still a lot to learn. So I'm kicking around that idea too, but there's just options.
Sounds like it. It sounds like you have an embarrassment of riches there in that resource for you.
Oh, I just can't believe, because it's like 5 hours a week for 16 weeks. And if you take a workshop like at Convergence, and that's for free, and they give all the yarn you want. And I'm like,
even better.
Yes, I'm like, it's just you take a workshop at a conference and it's just a lot of money plus getting there and paying the fee to get in. And so I'm blessed in that way that I have this resource, and it's a 10-minute bike ride from my house. So
Perfect.
yeah.
So let's see, as you have gone down this road, what I mean, you've taken some classes from some pretty amazing teachers. What have you picked up along the way or sort of discovered is like, oh my God, I wish I had known that. I wish somebody had told me that. Or was there, are there any kind of like aha, tips or lessons or, I don't know, suggestions that you would have given to your earlier weaving self or to someone starting out?
Um, Trying to think. I mean, as I've gone on, I've gotten better at things like warping and
Mhm.
tension. When you first start out, it's pretty sloppy, and um,
Can
you
be.
know, so knowing, how to keep your warp, keep the tension tighter is better. One of the things that I just saw a tip, and I don't know if it's a good tip or a bad tip, but it works for me, and I started doing it, is when I get the warp on a loom, on a rigid heddle loom, then I put a piece of painter's tape over the back bar, over the warp, and it
Mhm.
just holds it kind of snug because sometimes it can shift.
Mm.
And as you get towards the end, it, if you want to weave as far as you can weave, sometimes it gets really sloppy. That painter's tape really holds it a lot better. So that's a tip that I learned recently that's
Writing
been
that
really,
down.
yeah.
I'm writing this down.
If you're the person out there who came up with that, I'm so sorry because I don't remember where I read it or where I saw it. But it's been a great tip. So that's helpful. Um, there's just so many helpful things like how to weight your threads, and you can find a lot of tips like that on the internet uh,
Mhm.
about how to do those things. Um, I think one of the things that I forced myself to do that I didn't want to do, and I've hardly ever broken this rule, is if I start weaving something and I think I hate this, I am so tempted to take it off the loom. And I'm like, do not do that. Make yourself go all the way through. And then you can decide later if you like it or you don't like it. And I've gotten done with some stuff and I'm like, actually, I like it.
Hmm.
But at the beginning, you can't really see, when you're just starting out, you can't see what it's going to be like.
Mhm.
Uh, and another thing is if you have a gap, like you weave for a while and you don't weave for a while. So I had this instance. I wove a ton of towels. A friend contacted me, will you sell me towels? I'm like, yes, I'll sell you towels. Then something happened in my life. I don't remember what. And then I didn't weave for a while. Then she contacted me and said, hey, I'm going to see my brother in a few days. Any chance you could make me some towels? And I was like, yeah, I can make you some towels. Well, oh my gosh, my selvages were horrible because I hadn't woven in so long. So I called her and I was like, I am so sorry. I cannot sell these to you. They're they're too bad. But it's like, it's like not riding a bike for a while, then you get on and it doesn't happen immediately. You learn. I mean, it comes back, but it takes a little bit to get stable again. And so sometimes if you take a break, it just takes a little bit before that muscle memory kicks back in and you get it.
It can even be on different, going from one type of loom or from one loom to another. I personally just had an experience where I went to a workshop and we were instructed to wind a warp, bring it with us. And I have, and then we're gonna, warp the looms there. And I have, all of my own setup and my clamps and my gizmos and my
Mhm.
things and, whatever. And so when I don't even really have to think about warping at this
Right.
point. I got to the class and it was like it was a loom it was a brand of loom I had never woven on before. I'd never warped on before. And I was like, do I even know how to weave? Do I even know how to work? Like it felt so cumbersome and
Mhm.
weird and difficult. And oh my God, my warp was a mess. I was able to salvage it, but it was a mess. So yeah, it can be anything. It can be a break in time. It can be a break in routine. It can be a break in equipment, not a
Yeah.
break of equipment, but a, different kind of equipment. It's amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, and which is another point of if one thing doesn't work, maybe another thing will, like throwing when you've got a shuttle that you throw instead of a stick shuttle.
Hmm.
I like the skinny ones. They don't hold nearly as much yarn, so I like it that the bigger ones hold a lot more yarn, but I find that I can't control those bigger ones nearly as well as I can control the ones that aren't as wide.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes if something doesn't work, it's like, okay, this isn't working, but let me just try a different tool. let me just try it a little bit different way. And so experimenting and being okay with this isn't working, let me change it up. Another thing is warping more than you need so you can play at the beginning.
Mhm.
Sample on that. So sometimes, you know, I'll warp a lot more and then say, like with this one, I ended up like sampling for the first 12 inches just to make sure I knew how to do it and to see what I wanted it to look like. So don't always just warp to the last inch to save money, because long run you might not like what you have.
Yeah. My experience has always been that when I've sampled, when I've played, it's always been at the end after I finish the project, and then I like what I've experimented with way more than the actual project that I wove. So
Yeah.
I'm doing it backwards, Carolyn. You're doing it the right way. So
Well, see, sometimes I screw up, but
yeah.
you know.
I just sort of want to close on the log cabin box. I do want to go back to the idea that I think you and I actually talked about this at one point recently, which is like, oh, log cabin, are people going to like this? Is it going to be interesting enough? It's plain weave. But like I said, I think you've just done such a lovely job with, innovating on an existing technique, whether it be through set or through numbers of colors, through, you know, just doing isolated bands of motifs as opposed to entirely across the whole cloth. Are there any I don't know, thoughts you'd like to leave folks with about the collection, whether it's particular lessons, tips, inspirations, anything like that that you'd like to just to close out the box with?
Well, first, when I started the table runner and the shawl, you were really helpful in giving me feedback on those. I was like, okay, the first versions were a lot more simple than they are. And I was like, no, I need to push myself and push the box so that people can walk away with techniques, not just a final product.
Mhm.
And so I, like with the shawl, we played with border. It's like 3 colors, but when you count the number of appearances of colors, when you look far away, I think there's maybe 6 or 9 different colors because of how we
If it
put
blends.
borders. Yeah. And so my hope is that when people weave that, they'll get ideas for how they can manipulate their own patterns to
Mhm.
get different effects. And same thing with the other ones that it's not just, oh, I made these 3 things, but I learned ways to tweak log cabin. And there are even more ways to tweak it out there. Those aren't the only 3. And so
Mhm.
then just playing with log cabin and feeling like you have confidence to like manipulate it even more so that
Mhm.
you create even more unique patterns. So that's kind of what my hope was out of those patterns, that people would learn new things but also get new techniques to apply to other patterns that they might come up with on their own. The one thing I would say with log cabin, especially on the shawl and the table runner, is, well, on both of them, but the towels seem pretty like, okay, I'm going to do this, and the repeats are close together and it's easier to keep track of your repeats maybe in your head. Although for all of them, I had a piece of paper and I wrote what I was doing and I was ticking it off, and then going back and checking, and I even made a few mistakes even with doing that, you know and for me, I have to print it out and then take it off on a piece of paper. But those patterns, while not complex, can be deceptive because they seem like, oh, okay, I get it. It's plain weave. But to know when to change your colors or
Yeah.
when to change your the number of picks in a shed,
Mhm.
or the number of ends in a slot or a hole, um, or how many rows of solid color do you do before you switch it over to your light color.
Mhm.
uh, Easy to get that off.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about log cabin, though, is off is only off if you're trying to compare it to a pattern.
Yeah.
So even, if you're making your own thing and it's not exactly like what you thought, it's still going to look great, because that's the beauty of log cabin. is it has that vertical horizontal look. And, you know, there's no right or wrong if you're creating your own. There's only, I guess, right or wrong if you're comparing it and saying, I want exactly that thing. So that's one of the beautiful aspects of log cabin.
Yep.
Yeah. So
And
those are,
in weaving in general. So
yeah. Yeah.
Anna, is there anything from the audience that to answer any questions or anything like that?
Nope, nothing has come in.
Great. Okay. Well, then thank you, Carolyn, so much. And I look forward to working with you again on some other projects, as I just know that as soon as you start delving back into these classes again, I'm going to be hearing from you with a, hey, what about this?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you for your input on everything and this opportunity to weave the box, but also do the Facebook Live. And thank you, Anna, for hosting. And it's just a joy to work with you guys. And I'm just so pleased to have this opportunity to be able to work with you and partner with you.
great. Well, we can't wait to see what else you come up with. So,
So thank you.
all right.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Have a
Bye.
great day.
Bye.